and welcome to Biz RoundUp. I am Tamiru Nimsat and we at our television bring you a collection of business highlights. Let's have a look at the headlines. Central Bank decides to maintain deposit rate at over 8% and lending rate at about 9%. Capital market shows a surge of confidence in the new government. September tourist arrivals fall short of monthly target. News in detail. The Monetary Policy Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to maintain the standing deposit facility rate at 8.25% and the standing lending facility rate at 9.25%. This decision was taken during the board meeting last week.
The board highlighted that inflation is expected to remain well below the target in the near term, with the potential for deflation due to reduced administrative prices and easing supply conditions. On the economic growth front, CBSL noted that Sri Lanka's economy grew by 4.7% year-on-year in the second quarter of 2024, building on 5.3% growth recorded in quarter 1 of 2024. The expansion of private sector credit by licensed commercial banks since May 2024, supported by declining market lending interest rates, has been broad-based across major sectors. However, tourism earnings and worker remittances improved during this period, helping to bolster the external current account. The Sri Lankan rupee appreciated by over 7% against the US dollar in 2024, and the central bank has accumulated $6 billion in gross official reserves by the end of August 2024. The board affirmed that the current accommodative monetary policy is driving lower interest rates and contributing to the recovery of domestic economic activity.
Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Weerasinghe said that the treasury bonds and bill auctions saw a surge in value over the recent weeks, but it is expected to fall because the heavy borrowing requirement has now eased. The Central Bank Governor said this speaking at the Monetary Policy Review of the Central Bank in Colombo last week.
What we have seen last couple of months, there were large auction sizes, and government has been raising full amounts of weekly treasury bills and also some treasury bonds to a large extent, 100% of the market. Then as a result, there have been some uptick in the market rates in the short term, but we have seen the heavy borrowing requirements have now eased from the last month. I think last month there was the largest bond auction happened. Now I think going forward what you can see, the financial requirements are kind of lower than what we think. Bill auctions and bond auctions, I think that will already we have seen some of the, and also the speculation, because when there's large bonds sizes coming out, obviously market circulate and take position, and that has, now I think last bill auction we have seen the turning around. We would expect with the lower bond sizes of financial requirement domestic market from the government, I think those will fall in line with our monetary policy interest rates. That's obviously the short-term variation can happen all the time. Week-on-week basis, government bill rates can go up and down, but overall trend we can still see that trend will follow.
Speaking further at the press conference, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Weerasinghe said that the Central Bank will be committed to maintaining a low and stable inflation rate and build external buffers where foreign exchange is concerned. He said that the exchange rate will be determined through the market taking into consideration the demand and supply, and the central bank will intervene only in cases of high volatility.
How the exchange rate is determined in our current monetary policy framework is obviously determined through market demand and supply, and also other key macro factors, the current account balance, remittances, foreign exchange earnings, exports, and tourism. Right now they are doing well, and in addition, if there are any investment inflows and outflows, and also level of reserves that we have. So on that basis, but your observation, I'm not quite sure international investors are looking at the exchange rate and determine how economy performs. I think that's, in our view, is not the right way to look at the country's economic performance. It's mainly key economic indicators within our control. So our responsibility is to maintain inflation at low and stable level, that as we agreed with the That is the key mandate that central bank has. So we are trying to maintain inflation within those targets. Exchange rate will be determined by the market forces. The short-term volatility changes can happen, but only thing what we do is to intervene to smoothen out any kind of sharp volatilities and letting the market to determine the exchange rate based on demand and supply, while also trying to build up the external buffers in terms of foreign exchange. So I think if any international investor is interested, I think I would suggest that they need to look at all the key macroeconomic fundamentals.
The Colombo Stock Exchange experienced a strong rally following Anukumari Dissanayaka's victory in the presidential election, marking the highest gain of the year. Prior to the election, the Colombo Stock Exchange had been struggling with both the All-Share Price Index and S&P SL20 Index showing negative year-to-date returns. Anukumari Dissanayaka's victory triggered a sharp recovery in the market, with the SPI rising nearly 10% and the S&P SL20 jumping by 13%. This propelled both indices back into double-digit year-to-date returns, a level not seen for many months. The market continued its momentum, closing in the green for the 10th consecutive day. On one of the most active days, the SPI reached an intraday high of 11,914 before closing slightly lower at 11,885, still gaining 81 points for the day. However, foreign participation in the market remained limited, with foreigners being net sellers. The overall market sentiment remained buoyant, driven by a combination of institutional investments and retail activity. Stay tuned. We will return after the short commercial break. Welcome back after the break. Sri Lanka's Colombo Consumer Price Index registered a year-on-year inflation rate of minus 0.5% in September, indicating a deflation compared to 0.5% in August. This information was published by the Department of Census and Statistics recently. This marks a continued decline in inflation, driven primarily by lower prices across various categories. Food inflation dropped to minus 0.3% in September, down from 0.8% in August, reflecting a reduction in the cost of food items. Non-food inflation also saw a significant decrease, registering minus 0.5% in September compared to 0.4% the previous month. The overall CCPI dropped marginally from 191.1 in August to 190.9 in September 2024, with the month-on-month change driven by a minus 0.17% contribution from food and 0.06% from non-food items. Interestingly, the core CCPI, which excludes volatile items like food and energy, increased slightly to 177.6 from 177.3 in August. Despite the month-to-month deflation, the general price level has risen by 90.9% when compared to the index reference, indicating long-term inflationary pressure. The Cabinet of Ministers in Sri Lanka has approved a proposal by the Prime Minister to establish a committee responsible for reviewing the entitlements, allowances and privileges granted to members of Parliament, ministers and ex-presidents. This decision was announced by Cabinet spokesman Minister Vijitha Herath at the post-cabinet meeting media briefing earlier this week. Minister Herath emphasized the importance of reducing the financial burden on the government, which currently incurs significant costs from public taxes to fund these privileges. The committee will be chaired by retired Supreme Court Judge K.T. Chitrasiri, with D. Dissanayaka, a retired secretary to the ministry, and Jayantha C.T. Bulumulla, a retired district secretary, also serving as members. The committee has been tasked with submitting a comprehensive report within 2 months, providing recommendations to minimize unnecessary expenditures or propose alternative methods for these entitlements. This review is aimed at aligning government expenses with the country's current fiscal constraints. Speaking further at the press briefing, Cabinet spokesman and Minister Vijitha Herath also said that the Sri Lankan government is preparing to recall ambassadors and high commissioners who were appointed based on political allegiances. Minister Herath indicated that a report is being compiled on this matter and the recall of political appointees will be based on its findings. He highlighted that many diplomatic posts, including appointments for sons and daughters of MPs, were filed through political connections. However, no immediate recall of Sri Lankan diplomats has been initiated at this point. In addition, preliminary investigations into the Easter Sunday bomb attacks and the central bank bond scam have been launched by the Public Security Ministry. These investigations are still in their early stages. Stay tuned. We will return after the short commercial break. Welcome back after the break. The International Monetary Fund has suggested modifications to Sri Lanka's statutory reserve requirements system to enhance its effectiveness in liquidity management and monetary policy transmission. The IMF said this in a technical assistance report on liquidity monitoring and monetary operations published recently. The IMF highlighted key shortcomings in this current system, recommending changes that could stabilize demand for domestic reserves and improve overall financial operations. The IMF emphasized that in a monetary policy framework targeting interest rates, SRR can help establish a stable demand for reserves. It further noted that reserve averaging, where banks can temporarily access liquidity buffers, would reduce volatility in market interest rates by managing unexpected fluctuations more effectively. Inconsistent application of SRR across different banks, some local savings banks which account for 10% of total banking assets are excluded from the SRR framework. These banks do not have access to monetary policy instruments of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, weakening the overall transmission of monetary policy. Foreign currency liabilities are not subject to SRR. Foreign currency deposits represent about 22% of the banking system's deposit base as of April 2023. This creates a disparity as banks can provide foreign currency loans equal to deposits without SRR, while rupee loans are constrained by SRR requirements. The IMF argued that addressing these inconsistencies would level the playing field between local and foreign currency transactions, improve monetary policy effectiveness, and support economic stability. Sri Lanka attracted over 118,000 visitors in the first 29 days of September, falling short of the monthly target of 150,000 as per the provisional data released by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. Compared to August and July, September saw a 23% and 31% decline respectively. Although the electronic travel authorization system was restored on September 26, the daily arrival average of 4,069 was insufficient to raise the overall monthly average to the required 6,000 visitors per day. Year to date, Sri Lanka has welcomed over 1.48 million tourists, approaching the 1.5 million milestone. India continues to be the top source market, contributing 27,083 visitors in September, followed by China and the UK. Year to date, India remains the largest source market with 285,755 visitors, while the UK ranks second with 136,186 and Russia third with 126,885. Sri Lanka's export sector showed a positive trend in August 2024, with merchandise exports reaching over $1.1 billion, a 4.18% increase compared to August 2023. This was revealed by the provisional data from Sri Lanka Customs released recently. The key drivers of this growth included strong performances in the export of apparel and textiles, tea, rubber-based products, coconut-based products, and spices and concentrates. Apparel and textiles export hit over $500 million, marking a 17.51% year-on-year growth. Notably, this was the first time in 2 years that these exports surpassed the $500 million mark. Tea exports, accounting for 12% of merchandise exports, saw a 9.11% year-on-year increase, reaching over $130 million, with bulk tea and tea packets performing well. Exports to Iraq and Iran increased by 13.35% and over 114% respectively. Rubber products saw a significant boost, with export earnings up 29.48% to over $103 million, driven by pneumatic tires, tubes and gloves. Coconut-based products recorded a 38.3% increase year-on-year, with strong growth across kernel products, up by 50.15%, and fiber products, which was up by 29.42%. Spices and concentrates exports grew by 8.55%, with pepper leading the way, up 31.56%. On the services front, ICT exports surged by 35.76% to an estimated $146.26 million, and logistics and transport services rose by 7.01% to over $146 million. The total value of exports combining both merchandise and services amounted to over $1,480 million, representing a 4.67% increase compared to August 2023. With that, we wind up for today. For this and more, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. See you tomorrow with State of Business at 7:45 p.m. Take care and good night.